What's up, Impact? It's Jake here from Jamestown. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're doing great during quarantine. Hopefully we will get to see you guys soon. We miss you and we love you. I'm so happy that you chose to be here tonight for tonight's video message with Impact. We have something really, really special for you guys that I think you're gonna really enjoy. But with that being said, I'm gonna send this to my man, Chris Applegate.
What's up, Impact? This is Chris from Kernersville. Guys, we have a special message for you guys tonight from our man, my good friend, Randy Honeycutt. He's got an awesome, encouraging word for you guys here, talking about what to do right now in this new normal and things that we've probably taken for granted in the past that are all around us that we can start appreciating right now. Y'all check out this word and this message from Randy. Enjoy yourself, because you know Randy always tells the best stories. We love you guys. Can't wait to see y'all soon.
Hey everybody, it's Randy. Good to talk to you for a little bit. Chris sent me a note a couple weeks back and said, hey, you got any thoughts about what's going on, what we're dealing with? Thoughts around some stuff? I said, yeah, I have some ideas, have some thoughts, and love to talk to you about them. So he said, shoot us a little video and send it over. So here it is. A couple thoughts about what we're dealing with. One thing that keeps popping up, have you noticed how much we keep hearing the term back to normal? Keep hearing it over and over again. Hey, when are we going to get back to normal? Back to normal. It's non-stop. And some of that is, some of it's pretty scary. There's no doubt about it. There's some people that are, there is some normal that isn't happening in people's lives that is deep and real. But there's this phrase of back to normal. And as it seems like the more I hear it, and you're probably picking up on this too, the more we're hearing this, we're kind of going realizing that's not going to happen. We're not going back to normal. That was then. There is a new normal that is coming, and back there is not it. You're seeing it too, right? So I've noticed the phrase back to normal being used constantly. Something else I've noticed. Have you noticed what you're seeing now that you've never seen before? Have you noticed what you're experiencing now that you've never experienced before? Have you noticed that school is different? Have you noticed that you actually see what your house looks like on a Monday morning at like 10 a.m. In the springtime, in the wintertime, in the cold time, times that you have been in school ever since you were in kindergarten? You're seeing parts of the world and parts of your life that you've not seen before. Have you noticed this? Those that play sports and things like that, do you realize you went through an entire spring without a practice? In other words, you probably know what Thursday night looks like at home. You've probably seen more of your family than you could, some of you may ever want, but don't lose that just yet. Other things that I've seen, one of my new favorite things is we now have cloth napkins like fancy people, but I come to find out it wasn't because we're fancy. It's that paper towels are hard to come by, so now we have cloth napkins at home, and we're using those at dinner, which kind of feels fancy, but also there's more of a reality behind it. These are things that we're experiencing for the first time. Like today, I'm not at work, but I'm going to go to work. I'm working from home. But now I'm at home outside, listening to the birds sing and seeing things that I've not seen before. This is incredible. And there's also some scary stuff. Like, people don't have jobs anymore. And then people's who don't have jobs because their jobs had health insurance have lost both at the same time. And there is some things we're experiencing that we've never experienced before. Something else I've been beginning to notice, and not so sure if it's a good thing. Have you noticed how many people have tried to hijack this whole thing for their own agenda and their own purpose? And it seems so fake. Have you noticed this? I watch people as they begin to, in organizations and institutions and all these things. It was like they were moving along just fine. This disrupted their world, and now they're trying to figure out a way to get our attention, get our money, get our time, our energy, and all of that just seems like, yeah, it's a waste. I have all the time in the world, but I don't have time to waste it on that. Have you noticed the things that aren't as important as they once were 2 months ago? Like who's going to this dance or who's taking who to the prom, or what car someone's driving, what someone wore today. Have you noticed how these things just kind of disappeared out of importance? One of the things that keeps coming back to me when I think of the Jesus stories, which are my favorites, is I read the stories of Jesus, and I hear him talk often about, or I see people write stories about him when he would heal people. People with diseases and sickness. During his time, there was a disease called leprosy that has some unusual similarities to what we're dealing with, because at the time they didn't know how it was transmitted. They thought contact with people would do it. And so what would happen is, in that time frame, the cities and the villages were so incredibly poor that they couldn't just shut down a city or a village like we've been able to do. Most of those people were taxed 80 and 90% of their income, and so they were terrified of what to do. And what they would do is, if you wound up sick, instead of shutting the city down to keep everyone safe, they would exclude you from the city. They would push you outside the city. You would now have to live outside of the cities and the villages, and you were not allowed to be a part of their world anymore. We're seeing some of that, but in kind of a different angle. The stories that people would write about Jesus after him would talk about him healing people. One in particular that stuck out to me during all of this, that kept coming back to mind, is there was a time when Jesus had healed 10 lepers. 10 of these people were together. And that was a common thing, because once they were excluded from the city, they were kind of by themselves. And so lepers would find other lepers. There's a couple other stories in the Bible about, or at least one other story that I know of about this, where they would gather together and kind of hang out together. And that would just be, hey, we're all sick. We can't share it any more than we have, so we're just going to hang out together. 10 of these lepers had gathered together, and they had heard of Jesus and his fame of healing people. And so they go and they find him and they hunt him down. And as he's traveling between two regions, and when they see him, they run up to him and they say, hey, can you heal us? And so when I read the story, I didn't really see in there where Jesus says, yeah, I'll heal you, no problem. He just simply said, go show yourself to the priest, which was a common thing, that once you were healed, you would show yourself to the priest, and they would give you the thumbs up, you were good to go. So a couple of things that just kind of stick out to us. It was pretty obvious that these were Jewish people who would go show themselves to the priest, or at least that's an assumption. As they were heading to go show themselves to the priest, they noticed that their bodies were healed. All 10 of them. One of them comes back and is running back to Jesus and screaming and yelling and excited and just, pumped, as anyone would be. And as he runs up on Jesus and he falls at his feet and he is so grateful, Jesus says something that seems incredibly odd and maybe even a little bit rude at first when we first read it. He looks at him and he says, hey, wait a minute, weren't there others? Weren't there 9 other people? Weren't there 10 of you total that were healed? Where's everybody else at? Oh, and by the way, why is this outsider the only one that came back? And when he said outsider, he wasn't talking about a leper being an outsider. The man was a Samaritan. A Samaritan was a group of people that were hated by a lot of Jewish people in that first century, and there was some old cultural history that brought it in. No hate's not right. No version of hate is right in any way, shape, or form. But it was something that they had to deal with in their time and place. And so, being this man was a Samaritan, he was considered an outsider before he was ever a leper, which was ironic. Before he was ever a leper, he was considered an outsider. But the thing that was really interesting is when Jesus kind of said all of that, this is what stuck out to me. See if it doesn't stick out to you. What was Jesus actually telling him? Jesus wasn't talking about the man being healed. Jesus wasn't talking about his family. He wasn't talking about going back to normal. He wasn't using any of that language. In fact, Jesus used language, very important language. Hey, weren't there 10 of you? And you're an outsider. When Jesus told them all and said, hey, go show yourself to the priest, there's kind of an assumption here that he was talking to mostly Jewish people who would go see the priest, probably with the exception of the Samaritan. In those days, most of the Jewish people, it was just a common thing, didn't like the Samaritans and wouldn't spend time with them. But when they were lepers, that didn't matter. When Jesus responded to that guy, it was as if he was not pointing him back to his normal life. And he wasn't pointing him to him being healed. He was pointing him back to remember when you walked around with people who weren't like you. Remember when you weren't healed. Remember when that you're a Samaritan, but remember it used to not matter just a few days ago. Remember? It was almost like he was pointing him back. There was a time and place when you were equal. There was a time and place when all of stuff in life didn't matter. Back to normal wasn't a common thing. Shockingly, most lepers would die of this disease. And Jesus was intentionally not pointing him back to his normal life, but pointing him back to what it was like to live in that time frame when he was roaming around the countryside with 10 other lepers. And here's the thing I think for me and you that's pretty cool. Right now we're experiencing things we've never experienced before. We're seeing things that we've never seen before. Things that used to be so big and important are so fake and useless now, right? We're seeing that. But the phrase that we keep hearing most is, let's get back to normal, back to normal, back to normal. And someday we'll get to a new normal. We know that's back to normal is not happening, but we'll get to a new normal. But when we get there, let's go ahead and make a conscious decision. We're not going to forget what we learned during the time that we were like that leper, that we were outside of the city, we were roaming around with 10 of our only friends that we could have. Let's not forget, because I think there's something important here. This virus that hit the whole world, it equalized everybody. You notice the categories don't matter anymore about religion and country and origin and race. None of that matters anymore, does it? We just don't want anybody to be sick with it, and we want everybody to get better. Isn't that interesting? Isn't it interesting that now we all have a common care for all people, and that's the thing that people are talking about? There's something here that we need to learn, because when we go forward into the new, it's going to be important. We're not going back to there. That's not happening. We know it. But we're going to go forward. And when we go forward, there is something here that we are learning. And some of it we don't even realize we're learning. And we'll figure it out later. But pay attention to what you're experiencing and what you're seeing. Because I think there's something here for you, for me, for all of us to pay attention to. Because it's going to matter when we get there. So that's my thought. See what you think about it. See if it makes sense to you. And if you have any ideas, shoot them to me. Love to hear them. I'm out here at my garden spot, getting ready to plant a garden. It's a little bit too wet today. It's supposed to rain this evening, so I'm probably going to have to wait a little bit longer. But this is one of the things I get to do. I love doing it. I had planned to do it even before all of this, and now I have more time to even do it. But this garden thing is similar to what we're talking about. Because right over here, here, let me show you. It might even be easier. Right over here, that's a compost pile. Whoops, sorry. Covered the screen, sorry. That's the compost pile. And that over there, that's the garden. And if you're not familiar with what all that is, a compost pile is where you put all the old stuff, all the old things that you used to have. That's where it goes. You put all of it there. Compost pile. the apple cores, the apple peelings, the potato peelings, old hay, leaves, dirt, all of the stuff that you're not going to use, it goes in there and it rots and decays. It's not coming back. It's there. And then out here in the garden, we're going to put some of that compost into the garden, because some of that old stuff that used to be really, really good is going to be part of the garden that we're going to plant. And it's going to be life for new life. So you've lived through some stuff. We're living through some stuff. We don't know when it's going to change your end, but it's going to be very different going forward. There are some things here we're not going to go back to, but we're going to use it to become fertilizer and things for the next new life that comes in our life. So pay attention to what new is coming for you. And one final word. Normally when I'm with you, I try to find some really cool song that we play as we leave out. And so we can't do that. So, other than the bird singing. But there is one more message from Jesus, and by Jesus I mean Jesus Jones. Great song right here, right now. So turn it up, play it, enjoy it. Have a wonderful day.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Phil from our Oak Ridge location. And y'all, what an incredible message that we just heard from Randy Honeycutt. He's challenging us to look at this situation in a different way. It's really easy for us to get negative and look at all the bad things about the situation, but he gave us some positive things, some things that we can focus on right now, some things that we have the opportunity to focus on and grow in that we didn't before. And so as you guys sync up with your small groups virtually and y'all start discussing all of these different things that Randy just laid out, our prayer is that you guys will be encouraged, that you guys would connect, and you would find a way to see the positive in what's going on right now. Because we believe and we know that God is working and that he wants us all to grow, and that if we allow it, we will be better on the back of all of this. And so thank you guys so much for listening, and we will talk to you guys very soon.